Though I was unsure whether a single gemstone would be powerful enough to accomplish what I intended, I did not hesitate, for I knew our lives depended on the celerity of my action. With no further thought, I summoned the equation in my mind that had opened the door and replaced the variables with incorrect values. Instantly, the towering doors leading into the Teteculan hall swung shut with a deafening boom. A great soleret of shining violet metal appeared next to my face and kicked the emerald of the Zuli from my grasp. I rolled onto my backside, kicking off with my feet as I pushed myself away from the giant seraphim who loomed menacingly above me. I felt something hot on the back of my arm, and then glanced behind to see a gleaming sword raging with crimson flames lying on the marble floor only a foot from my grasp. Instantly, I snatched up the weapon and leaped to my feet. It was only then that I was able to take in my surroundings. I stood in a large circular chamber, in the center of which lay a round well in the floor, from which roared forth a torrent of sparkling blue energy fully 50 feet in diameter. The blinding pillar of cerulean light rose up out of the well and disappeared into a concave depression far up in the chamber's lofty heights. Surrounding the entire perimeter of the circular wall lay a ring of cylinders, perhaps capsules or canisters of some kind, all gleaming with the same violet-hued metallic luster as that of the seraphim's armor. Each of the torpedo-shaped cylinders was propped up at a 45-degree angle, a transparent window set in the face of the higher end, though I was not near enough to perceive what, if anything, lay inside. Thin tubes and wide-ribbed cables ran from the cylinders into recesses in the curving wall. I observed all this in only an instant, for what I saw directly before me made my blood at first run cold and then hot. I stifled a cry. Across the room lay Jansen's unmoving form, a vicious wound in his side seeping crimson onto the cold tiles. Between us stood the giant Laveau with her flaming sword, her ebon wings beating lightly, a grin of triumph on her haughty countenance. Now, I like to think of myself as a rational, level-headed person, cool in a crisis and calm and collected enough to look for peaceable solutions where one might reasonably be found. But seeing Jansen lying there on the floor in a pool of his own blood, for all I knew, devoid of life, wiped all of that composure away in but an instant, and a gauzy red haze fell over my vision. A blind rage seized me. Clutching my flaming sword in both hands and raising it above my head, I leaped at the target of my hatred with a hoarse cry laced with anguish and revenge. So savage was my attack and so unexpected that even the tower of muscle and armor that was Laveau fell back before my blows. Though I am slight of build, my muscles had been honed into cords of steel by the endless exertions forced upon me during my cosmic travels. Moreover, though I prefer the way of peace, I am no dove when violence is forced upon me, nor am I an unskilled combatant, having been tutored in the arts of self-defense by none other than Tarzan of the Apes and his wife Jane Porter, and long before that by David Innes, Scourge of the Mahars and Emperor of Pellucidar, as well as by that legendary warrior Tanar of Sari. And so, Laveau retreated before the fury of my attack, until at last I saw fear break out in the dark eyes set within that chiseled alabaster face. For fully a minute, we swung our blades at one another with ruthless intensity. Laveau withdrew until her back was up against the chamber's great door, and I grinned with satisfaction as I thought she would tire enough that with a clever riposte I might disarm her. But as our fight wore on into its second minute, I suddenly realized that the tide had turned, and the 7-foot-tall giant was but playing with me.